Hello and welcome to the Sprint 89 review. This was a regular 2-week sprint. We're holding this review today because yesterday was a US holiday. Next slide, please. I will give the overview. Dan will update us on the UI, Bronagh on providers, Dina on automate, Gregg T on the platform, Alberto on the REST API, and Chris on documentation. Next slide. All right, so looking at all of the repos that we have, 92 repositories, 297 pull requests were merged. The majority of them in the classic UI, the core ManageIQ repo, the integration tests, and the B2B plugin. Next slide, please. All right. As I mentioned, yesterday was a holiday, and I think some people tend to take some holidays around it as well. So that probably accounts for the drop in pull requests merged. So we're down from 401 to 362 to 297, and that's the merged PRs and the open PRs. The red line on top went also down from 401 to 328. And that's it. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of the distribution of the merged pull requests, 37% were bugs and 37% were enhancements, and then sprinkling of everything else. Fine. In terms of the repository health, everything seems to be standing pat, which is good. Some improvements on the classic UI in terms of the code smells and the other issues. And that's about it. Everything else is kind of steady as she goes. Slide. All right, over to Dan for the UI.
Great, thanks. All right, so PR counts again, following the trend of the whole set of repos. We're down a little bit. You can see they're broken out there. Lots of bug fixes, several enhancements, and some other things. In the enhancements area, on the physical switches, you can now do a restart on those. In the VM migrate, you can choose the, at least in VMware, you can choose the folder for the target. A couple enhancements to generate PDFs, both where reports are generated synchronously and asynchronously. I think that's for the saved reports are the asynchronous ones, and synchronous ones are when you're looking at some screen that has a report backing, and you can then print off the report content. And in V2V, they have the lapse time clocks are now ticking. In the bugs area, there were some issues when we were looking at multiple languages that had special characters in them, and so they were the trees weren't building properly, so that's fixed. You were able to change the server name before, but you had to change something else on that screen. If you just tried to change the server name by itself, that wouldn't work, so that's fixed. And once a schedule was created, you weren't able to edit it. It would try to add it again, so we took care of that one as well. Next screen. Here's the V2V screen where the time clocks are ticking. Can you see them ticking? No, you can't. That's a static screen. Anyway, I guess the seconds will be ticking off. I'm not sure when you have 31 days passed if you really need that, but anyway, there's some animation on it. That is it. Over to Bronagh.
All right. So in Adam's absence, I'm going to share an update on both public cloud providers and the on-premise providers. Next slide, please. So the KubeVirt repo was the winner of the sprint with 17% of all merged pull requests, followed closely by the Overt provider, and then a handful, give or take, from the rest of the provider repos. Next slide, please. So Martin Slemmer updated the ManageIQ guides this sprint. He added a description of the new inventory collection class and the interface. From reading it, I thought that this would be very helpful for the authors of new providers. On Amazon, key pairs that are imported from the provider can no longer be deleted. So this is disabled from the UI. Key pairs created within ManageIQ can still be deleted. Next slide, please. On to OpenStack. We were associating the volume snapshots to the tenants using the wrong field. So as a result, all volume snapshots were visible to all tenants. So that got fixed. And then because of an RBAC issue, all public OpenStack images were not available. Not all public images were available, so that got fixed. And on to the Rev provider. The Rev team fixed a number of bugs in targeted refresh. A couple of note. The user-defined custom attributes were being cleared in post-processing, so that was fixed. And then when a virtual machine was deleted on the provider, the subsequent targeted refresh was blowing up, and that's because we were trying to process the values. So that got addressed. Next slide, please. Onto the VMware provider. So support was added to move a virtual machine into a folder. The Automate team and the UI team did quite a bit of work on this too, and I think Tina's going to expand on this. The method to remove a disk from a virtual machine has been exposed, which means it can be called from an Automate. And then support was added to the back end to rename a virtual machine. So this is much more convenient than having to re-provision a virtual machine for a name change. And then finally on VMware, the host parser for streaming refresh was wrapped up this sprint. So specifically, parsing of SCSI LUNs, SCSI targets, and the linking of the host to switches. And then finally onto Lenovo. The association is now in place between the physical servers and the switches. The parser is not yet complete, but the core association is. And that's it for providers. Over to Tina.
Yes, thank you, Bronagh. Good morning. We had 26 PRs merged this sprint. For V2V, Fabian added a new state to restore VM attributes. With this change, a newly migrated VM will have the same tags, custom attributes, and service associations as a source VM. Fabian added additional states to the transformation state machine and modified the state machine instances to leave empty states in between each state to allow for customization. For dialogues, Drew fixed an issue where static text boxes weren't setting the default value properly. Eric resolved an issue where drop-down dialog elements were being sorted when no sort was specified. And Eric changed the service reconfigure dialog processing to populate the reconfigure dialog with the values used during service provisioning. Next slide, please. Lucy added the request task options hash executed on server key to store all of the server IDs used during the task lifetime. This backend change is not exposed anywhere yet. Lucy added the ability to move a VM to another folder during vmigrate, as Bronagh had mentioned. We recently finished the consolidated email enhancement. This sprint, Billy Fitz started updating the old email methods with deprecation log messages. So you probably didn't realize that we support host provisioning as a feature directly in our product. We don't. Our fearless leader, GM, is removing it in favor of the Foreman integration. It had limited support for ESX hosts and was deprecated a while ago. Patrick fixed an issue where copying an automate method that contained an embedded method reference lost the reference. The automate git domain import was always showing system as a user. Billy Fitz resolved this issue by setting the current user. During request task processing, the automation log lines are supposed to contain the request task type and ID. Drew fixed an issue where the request task information was missing in automate method log. Next slide, over to Gregg.
Thanks, Tina. So on the platform side, we had 13 PRs merged. So some enhancements. Libor added Polish currency to chargeback. There's a whole list of currencies that he's added recently. So you can check the list to see what's supported. Brandon added the ability to schedule catalog items. This was for V2V. So now when you order a V2V migration, you can set the schedule for it. We're also working on some more operations on the schedule, like deleting and updating the schedule. That'll be coming in the next sprint. For bug fixes, so LJ removed request taggable, prevent tag filtering. So this is on MIQ requests. So we had recently added that to fix a different bug where there was a server error, but it actually was the wrong change. And we realized that MIQ requests are not taggable, so they shouldn't be filtered for RBAC. But we do filter them for what users and groups own, so that's all supported, that's all fixed up now, so that was an important change. And then Libor made a fix to chargeback, where it was showing double rates and values. What was really happening, it was a UTC conversion issue, and it was actually, for the period, it was actually falling into the previous period, so we actually got the same values for the previous period, and that's all fixed up as well. Next slide, please. So Alberto is on vacation this week, so I will turn it over myself for the rest. So Philippe added a new endpoint for physical racks. So now you can, it's a primary collection, and you can do gets and collection searches as well as bulk collection queries. And you can do single and bulk action refreshes with that. Next slide. Douglas added the ability to restart physical switches. So that also supports single resource and bulk actions, and you can do restart on both those. Next slide. Another new endpoint by Esdras. Added primary collection for physical storages, and like the other one, you can do gets and collection searches as well as single and bulk refresh actions on that one as well. Next slide. So Brandon added the scheduling API for service templates through the service templates, you can schedule time for when to actually do that, and that was also for V2V. That goes back to the backend support that I mentioned before. So you can do it on the action order and bulk action order, and you can pass the schedule time. And that's it for the API. Next slide.
Hi, for documentation in this sprint, we only had 10 PRs merged due to some work travel and vacationing, but 9 of them were enhancements and 1 addressed a bug. Some of the highlights are we've added a note for the limitation of network utilization metrics for non-ETH0 interfaces. A nice workflow example on creating a service using an orchestration template. We've added some content for configuring external authentication. Next slide, please.
And that brings us to the close of Sprint 89 review. The next review will be in two weeks, back to our normal Wednesday time. So it'll be on Wednesday, July 18th. And we'll see you all then. Thanks, everyone.